Hello, welcome to the Bigger Truth Podcast. I'm Scott McMahon, and I'm so excited to have DeAngeli, the great Adam DeAngeli from Rescue Michigan. This is his first time on my show. I've been on his show several times, and so welcome, Adam. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about, I put out a column a couple days ago about Mike Labadie and Kristina Karamo going unhinged for a couple different reasons. And I was talking with Adam, and I speculated in the column that a piece that was published recently in the Unshackle the Mitten was on Telegram was Mike Labadie. And based on his language, he has a very distinctive writing style, and I was certain that it was him. And so I went out, and Adam wrote me right away and said, it's definitely Labadie, and I can prove it. I could vouch for it. And he sent me some emails so that Labadie had sent him, years ago. And so we're going to go over that, and we're just going to kind of, we'll just see where the conversation goes. So let's get right into this here. Okay. So let's back up. So this is the message that he posted, and this was in response to the RNC basically kicked out. They refused to credential the entire delegation from Missouri after in May, Missouri's their convention was just straight up chaos. They had a 5-hour long credential process. They basically, after everything was said and done, they only gave them one choice on who to vote for delegates. There was one slate. They called it the truly grassroots for Trump slate, which is just classic, right?
Yeah, absolutely, totally not a front operation. The completely, truly authentic grassroots for Trump.
Believe us. Yeah, because we say so. Yeah, if anybody says, and they do this kind of thing all the time. It's like Kristina Karamo's questions, answers, and facts.
Yeah.
Because she had to add in facts because there weren't any. So let's just, yeah, exactly. And she does the same thing as when she talks to, she says, I'm not being petty. But that's exactly what she's doing. So Unshackle the Mitten. Of course, this is the, how would you describe it, Adam?
Well, I am not a hardcore Telegram follower. People send me stuff like this all the time. But I'll tell you what caught my attention, because when you first published that, and for those who, I'm sure a lot of your viewers know me from your appearances on my channel, but for anyone who doesn't know, I started following you from your first expose on what's been going on in Michigan with the grassroots disruptors. And I had known Mike Labadie from years ago, and I knew him before he had officially recruited Kristina Karamo to run for Secretary of State. And it clicked when you were talking about how he was someone who was behind the scenes running this entire operation to subvert the anti-establishment Republican grassroots in Michigan. And when I had seen this new piece of yours, at first, because, obviously people's writing styles can be similar and they can be different, but it's hard to just authoritatively say, this so-and-so must have written this. And when I saw you publish this and said, this is definitely Labadie, I'm like, ooh, I think this might be a stretch. I don't know if Scott can really prove that. And then it occurred to me, I've got some emails from Mike Labadie from back before he decided I wasn't a supporter of his or a follower of his, like 4 years ago. This was back in 2020 when this guy, Alan Hoover, was running for Congress. And Labadie was like his campaign consultant or something. And I ended up getting involved in this campaign, which was very bizarre. It was an open congressional race, and there wasn't really an establishment pick that we knew of at the time. Turns out there was this guy named Paul Young. But anyway, we thought it was a winnable seat. And but it was very, very, I remember COVID hit in 2020. And the campaign had a lot of difficulty just getting rolling because of all the lockdowns and stuff, obviously. And Labadie started getting us into, or trying to get us into, these weird schemes, and started off with we're gonna get Bob Lutz to be our finance chair. Bob Lutz is like 90 plus years old. That didn't pan out. The next thing was we're going to start a personal protection company. You're going to make millions of dollars distributing PPE for 3M. And he was having me make like this website for them. He wanted me to get on the ground floor and I'll get stock in this operation. I'm like, no, I think I'll just take the money for my work and that'll be it. I didn't want to get involved in this. And at some point, he just stopped talking to me. But anyway, he wasn't very communicative, but he did occasionally send an email out. So I looked at some of my old emails, and when I saw him, I was like, that is unmistakably Mike Labadie's writing. And there's a few things we can look at that absolutely stuck. And I was like, yeah, I can vouch for that. There's nobody on planet Earth that wrote that Telegram post other than Mike Labadie. And there's some odd tells in there.
Yeah. So let's start kind of at the top. He says, so this is his writing. The title is "The Globalist Cleansing of Godly Constitutionalist GOP Leadership." Yep. So, he always talks about globalism, and he's not the only one that does that. But as we get deeper into it, you'll see. This is a very distinctive writing style. The article found at the below web link evidences strategy we should expect out of temporarily powerful and devoted enemies of God and country. Cleansing under the pretense of what's required to beat Dems, and they're too Christian. Randy Guppy says he has a telltale style of writing, and that's this is it. It's globalist GOP infiltration, then cleansing of constitutionalists to increase dialectically managed fake opposition between the two mainstream political parties, while augmented by their media co-conspirators. So in every way. So he talks about dialectics all the time, which is a Marxist means of creating contrasts in order to communicate, and by comparing and contrasting rather than really getting at the real definition or the root understanding. And so it's one means of confusing people. But he talks about dialectics all the time, and he does in these emails that you've got too. So what do you think were some of the highlights? What else would you like to?
Well, I mean, there's the things that are not completely telltale, but are suggestive, are, as you say, the conspiracy thinking and all that stuff. But the issue is, a lot of people talk that way. And also he is very influential. So a lot of people might even write that way, emulating him. But there's a couple of things that are just absolutely crystal clear. And one of those is the endless repetition of the word globalist, which he says constantly. But there's more than that. And actually, probably the best way to prove it would be to put some things on the screen from those emails I sent you. But there's, in particular, I'll give you two things. One is the repetition of and the unnecessary use of the hyphens.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, I mean, I'm a political operative. I run my own organization. A lot of big part of that's writing for a living. So, I notice things like this. The other thing is that esoteric use of the word web link. So you've got that highlighted there.
Yep.
In the second paragraph says the article found at the below web link. Who calls them that? People will say, the web page, the URL, or just link, hyperlink. But web link is a very unusual, exotic term, and there it is in an email he sent 4 years ago. Yep. So there it is, there web link.
And here it is, the first sentence right here.
And that's like a word that's not something that'll be in anybody's common usage, but there's that one. But the other thing is the repeated misuse of the hyphens, overuse and misuse. So you see godly constitutionalist, but then he's got further down, you see on the right half, first paragraph on the right, where it says in underline, direct conflict, which is not proper use of the hyphen. Mm-hmm. And then below that, the bolded paragraph halfway down on the right side, moral absolutes, unnecessary hyphen. On the left side, actually at the end of a line there, but fake opposition does not need to be hyphenated. At the bottom, again, direct conflict.
Yes.
You see this repeated use of hyphens where they're not even necessary. Now, if you go back to the email, you see the exact same thing. In fact, his web domain, look at the from address there. He's got his email redacted, but the domain name, lightspeedmotors.com, he hyphenated Lightspeed. And you got the other ones highlighted there too. Aspiring tyrant, compartmentalized corruption, deep state, most people don't ordinarily hyphenate that. Workout, that repeated use of hyphens incorrectly and in weird places. That and that email, by the way, that you have up there, that clearly is from it literally was sent from Mike Labadie to me 4 years ago. And beyond that, in general, the timbre of it, the language, it hasn't changed. What has noticeably changed between the emails that I sent to you that I forwarded from 4 years ago to the new ones is the injection of God into everything. You'll see in the emails that I sent you, there's no mention of God or Christianity or any of that stuff. None. That I think discovered was good marketing for Kristina's people. But back in the day, Labadie didn't ever talk about faith or religion or anything like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I know once Kristina's campaign started, yeah, that's what it was all about. Yeah, there's one thing in this email that I thought was really interesting too is he brought in the illegal framing of General Michael Flynn bankrupting his family and putting him in jail to provide cover for the Russiagate conspiracy used to attack the president. Which evidences the compartmentalized corruption existing in these agencies.
It's funny, all roads lead to Mike Flynn.
Yeah. And which is, but that's the narrative that right there is a very specific narrative of the Mike Flynn network. And that, this isn't the way that normal people necessarily talk about Mike Flynn. This illegal framing of Flynn, framing him for what? I mean, he picked up the phone and called Ambassador Kislyak on his government issue BlackBerry without talking to his boss, President-elect Trump, and doing business, essentially negotiating on behalf of the United States government, on behalf of the president-elect, in opposition to the sitting president. I mean, this is he knew much better than to do that. I mean, this guy.
Yeah, I've got a clip for you. I'll send you the link here, but it's from people going back talking about during those moments when Flynn was in the White House and him just trying to make policy, and just speaking completely out of turn. People were shocked that he was just acting completely out of turn and almost bossing the president around. Which
he had been in the military and in military intelligence for 33 years. You don't rise to the rank of a 3-star general by usurping the authority of the higher up. Like, that doesn't happen. So he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah,
he had to have. So anyways, we got off topic there, but
sure.
So, and this is email too. Again, the hyphens just in the subject line, we got 2 of them: deep state and trickles down. Globalist Democrats.
Yeah, hyphens where they don't belong. I mean, maybe a 3-letter agency. Not every single one of these is wrong, but as you say, clearly excessive, and they're just, again, dialectically managed. There's that same word, that same unusual word.
Yep.
Yeah, globalist comes up constantly, which is weird, because I mean, I remember, a few years ago, Alex Jones that was the go-to word for the New World Order, the globalist, yada yada. That word's become like less accurate now because it's no longer this global dominance, and that's like a Western dominance thing. Like, clearly the West is against, BRICS, India, China, Russia. These countries are not part of whatever they're trying to build. It's not a globalist thing. It's a Western thing.
Right.
And that word's become, if anything, less applicable to describing that, cabal of people that want to usurp our sovereignty into this internationalist order. It's not a globalist thing. It's a European thing.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Cause we've got a bifurcated world now.
Yeah.
So, and then there's even more here in this 3rd email. And more, the unnecessary hyphens are,
you see it there too. And it's all the same kind of rambling too. I mean, the tone itself, the topics itself would not be, oh yeah, that could only be Mike Labadie, but that in conjunction with, with all these other telltale marks, like, yeah, this is nobody but Mike writes like this.
Mm-hmm. And one final point here about this message. I mean, basically, he's just the whole thing is that there's a globalist infiltration into the RNC and the Republican Party. There's so many just false beliefs behind this that he's perpetually, I think, intentionally promulgating. But one of them is that there's a distinction between the RNC and Trump. And I mean, the RNC and Trump are really, they're unified. Chris LaCivita is the he's the campaign manager for Trump Victory, and he's also the executive director of the RNC. Laura Trump is the co-chair of the RNC. There's and it goes even deeper than that. Like, just ideologically, they really are united, and we saw that yesterday in the platform committee pushing through really, and a I think, it's not a perfect, but it's a solid platform. It's a winnable big tent platform, um, in without any dissent, on a huge margin of victory as far as the vote. So
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing too is that for someone who is supposed to have some kind of strategic vision, there's different things people could be going for. One thing is electing Trump, right? If you're against the new world order, you certainly don't want Joe Biden to win a second term, or whoever empty suit the Democrats put in their place. Yeah, that's one thing. Another thing might be your loyalty to issues, and a pro-life person might have a genuine argument with them softening up on abortion in the platform. Okay, does it benefit the pro-life message to try to burn down the Republican Party right before the election? There's other ways to go about. I mean, there's ways to criticize it. There's another thing to say we should attack and destroy anybody who thinks like anything that this is a sign that Donald Trump is controlled, which is going to be the next place where this goes. Is Donald Trump himself as controlled opposition? Don't support him, don't vote, et cetera, et cetera. And that's always where they end up going. The disruptors always go towards channeling people into either doing nothing at all, being ineffective, or being counterproductive and destructive and damaging. And that's where they always go every time.
yeah, yeah. So he's talking godly constitutionalists representing the only path to your children and nation inheriting usable, God-given, inalienable rights, instead of tyranny that they are on track to inherit. And that was his message all along. JD Glosser said that really well, but that I quoted him in that first report that I did on Labadie, that everything was about preserving, saving the country for our children and grandchildren, this children and nation, and a usable, God-given, unalienable rights.
Yeah. In that paragraph there, it says, here's questions asked that increase probability of exposing the true nature of globalist community types. Hey, I got a question for you. Why doesn't he want to put his name on this? Here's a good question. Do people who have views that they want to spread mind putting their name down on it? Like, you identify yourself, I identify myself, everything they do is always shadowy. It's always in secret. It's always, this. Why doesn't Mike Labadie want his name on this? Why doesn't, and I think this other website you want to talk about that seems to be another Labadie operation. Nobody's name is on it. On my stream a week ago, we looked at this new lawsuit where, even though it's been filed in the Michigan Supreme Court and was clearly written with the assistance of some kind of attorneys, there's no lawyers' names on it. And it's on behalf of an organization that's got a website, but no spokesman, no president. Why is that? There's a reason.
Yep. Yeah. It's not just cowardice too. I don't think it's, there's some deception behind it. And ultimately, this is just, it's strange that he would be so moved to write this piece about what was happening in Missouri back in January. Jason says 1-800-grifter. Absolutely. Back in January, there was, right before the January 6th meeting at which Karamo was removed, she and Dan Hartman held a long online, like a Zoom meeting. And I listened to most of that. There was at one point, Dan Hartman said, and this was before I started recording everything, Dan Hartman said that Mike Labadie was working in other states. He was working actively in other states. And so I just wonder if Missouri isn't one of those states. I have heard from a source, I got a call from California, actually, that they met somebody who said that he was working directly with Mike Labadie in order to take over their county party. Wow. So, but they were too afraid to come forward publicly, and I couldn't get any other evidence out of them other than that. But so he is definitely working in other states. I know he's from California, so that's probably easy for him. But I just wonder if he has another connection with Missouri other than just he read it on Joe Hoft. So
yeah.
So let's move on to the other part of the column was about this recording with Anne Delisle.
Yeah.
Or about Anne Delisle, and we'll listen to the recording in just a second. But a lot of it had to do with this event right here, which was a fundraising event for the alternate electors for their legal fees. And Anne sent an email. Anne Delisle is she's the chairman of the Michigan delegation to the National Convention. She's the LD8 chair, and she sent this email to Kristina saying, hey, why has the MIGOP not issued a statement in support of Michigan's 16 electors? It's been months now. These are our electors. Why are we not lending them support? And I've talked to a couple of the electors. I'm actually about to publish tomorrow. I'll probably publish this report that I've been working on for some time about the electors. But I asked them early on about about Kristina and whether or not they had any, sort of support from them. And there was nothing. They said that she never picked up the phone and called them. She never asked them what she could do for them. And these were people that believed that they were friends with her. Like they really believed it. Like even just as a friend, not just as the chair. They had invested in her life, and they felt like they were friendly and they were friends with. But like even as a friend, you have your friend is indicted on decades of potentially of time in prison. You're gonna pick up the phone and call them and say, I'm so sorry this happened. Nothing.
Well, not only that, but that was the kind of thing Kristina styles herself as being so passionate about. It'd be one thing if it was a milquetoast, state chair who's like, we got to think forward of the election. We got to spend all of our resources winning in the next election, and we can't look back, and we can't help the people that are got these legal cases pending and yada yada. You expect that from an establishment person. Kristina's entire shtick was, we're going to relitigate 2020. These are the patriots that we need to stand together with, et cetera, et cetera. And then when she's in that position, she does nothing for them. And if you think about it, that's not the only thing. Her other whole spiel is we're going to expose and root out all of the rhinos. And yet, when it came to Republicans and having bad voting records in Washington or Lansing, again, an ordinary state chair would say, that's not my bailiwick. But that was what Kristina ran on, is we're going to confront the rhinos. Okay, well, then why aren't you? Right. Now, state chair's job is not to attack Republicans. I get that. But I'm saying that was what her message was supposed to be. But the only rhinos she's ever gone after are not policymakers. It's always grassroots leaders who are just people she doesn't like. People criticizing her inability to perform the basic task of the job.
Who also, by the way, happen to be the most effective, knowledgeable, and experienced members of the party.
Yeah, that too. Which is why they were so concerned. I mean, I've got a lot of flack from people saying, you never supported Kristina after she got elected. I said, well, I didn't start attacking her until, almost a year in, because I want to give her a chance. But anyone that knows how this system works knows that she wasn't qualified for that job. We kind of knew it was going to happen, So you'd expect people that are effective leaders to know she's not qualified to be the state chair. She doesn't know how to raise millions of dollars. This is not going to work. It just wasn't.
Right. Well, let's get into this. This is a 3-minute conversation. We might stop it as we go. We'll see. Oops.
So where is this from?
This is from the Stand Up Michigan. I'm not sure why it's not. Oh, there's the volume. So this is from the Stand Up Michigan meeting in March.
So this is after those emails were sent?
That's right. So this was 6 months after these emails were sent that we just read. So 6 months later, she is talking. This is actually her first public speaking gig that I'm aware of after the temporary injunction. And they very specifically at the beginning of the meeting, very specifically forbade any recording, said that if anybody was recording, they'd already notified the police and you'll be removed immediately. So we have this secret recording, and this is the kind of the highlight of the whole thing. In it, she's talking a lot about liars, and I would add that for about 15 minutes before this, she was talking about the December 2nd meeting at which there was a protest and supposedly a counter protest, and she claimed repeatedly that it was going to be held at a church. The meeting was supposedly initially, and then it was canceled. She claimed that the pastor and his family received death threats, and that those death threats came from the globalist infiltrators in the party, people that removed her, that are all globalists and liars. And but that, I actually did some research on this to find out, were there actually death threats? We called the police. We got not only were there no police reports filed, there were no calls from the church or the pastor's home address. Called the pastor. He just refused to talk about it. He said he doesn't want to talk about this ever again. But it was very clear that, and there's no indication. I mean, if as a pastor, but even as anyone, as a father, as a husband, if there's death threats, the first thing you're going to do is call the police.
Sure.
And so there were no calls to the police. The whole thing, the whole death threat idea, I think was false, but especially the family, like this, adding this in. So she's really, and she was using that to build this case that these people are globalists, that this was a conspiracy from the beginning to remove her by causing the meeting not to happen.
Yeah, it's not hard to imagine what the most likely scenario here was. There was an announced state party meeting at a church. It's not, and this is, right after October 7th. It's not hard to imagine any angry person, any Democrat, anybody protesting. And it's easy to bully, someone that's lending you their space. It happens a lot. Oh, you're gonna have so-and-so at your event. Well, then we're gonna boycott you if you're a business owner, what have you. And people often fold, especially if they were just going to give you the thing for free and there's no payment involved, there's no contract involved. Hey, sorry, I changed my mind. You can't come. That kind of stuff happens all the time. And so they decide to conflate that with, oh, this will be a great pretext to cancel our meeting. This will be a great pretext to say, sorry, we can't have that special meeting after all. I know it's also your fault that we didn't have the meeting. When what happened was we wanted to have the meeting. So these other folks scheduled the alternative location, and then Christina's like, oh, no, we can't have an alternate meeting. We can't have an alternate meeting anywhere else. That's what ended up happening.
Yeah. Lauren Turner says, I can confirm the pastor was extremely annoyed about being asked about this, and he quite definitely did not file any police report. And thank you, Lauren, for your help in that research. So I figured out the volume. So let's go ahead and start.
All right.
And these people are pathological liars. Pathological, just flat out lie. Accept their lying. And why am I bringing these stories? It's not pettiness. And it makes me so bad. I have another story about her lying. Why? And again, I'm not doing this out of pettiness because I want to call people out, but we need to understand what's happening. I'm coming full circle with it. She sent out an email CCing myself to me and added 25 people to the email, falsely accusing me of being silent about the 16 electors. And I responded back to the email. Now, any adult, if I have a problem with something you're doing, I'm going to email you one-on-one. I'm not going to CC 25 people in the email. Then, on top of that, she accused me of being silent on the 16 electors. I said, number one, that's not true. And then I also sent a picture of myself at a fundraiser for the 16 electors standing next to the man whose campaign she ran for Congress, along with Justin Barclay. Do you think she apologized and said I was wrong? No, she just went to spreading her next light. Now, why is this relevant? She will tell you she's a Christian. I will tell you the fake Christians in our party make my blood boil. There are so many people in our party who engage.
I guess that applause is the thing that bothers me the most about this recording. And you can tell there's a lot of people. There are well over 100 people in attendance, from what I was told. I do not know who took this recording. I think I was given it by someone who was given it by someone else. But you can tell just even by the applause that there's a lot of people in there, and they're applauding about her accusing Anne Delisle of being a fake Christian, and over something that, as we just saw, I mean, that what lie was she telling? I mean, she was being really truthful. Now, there was, as we showed this picture here, she did end up showing up, but this was she showed up reluctantly. She had no hand in organizing this event. She showed up because really there was it would have looked really bad for her politically had she not shown up. She really didn't have any other choice but to show up.
Yeah.
But that's not showing up for the electors. That was showing up for herself. And here we go. They're applauding, saying that, that Anne is a fake Christian. And it's stunning. Lauren adds, this was after I was told repeatedly that I should just ask the pastor to confirm Kristina's statement. He said he was not going to answer anyone else about this, implying he had already been inundated. And yeah, so it's, I want to get to this question. Bloody Laser in Arizona says, did some of the Karamo cultists betray President Trump for not backing her? And absolutely, they went on the offensive right away, talking about how Trump always makes bad personnel choices. He's been infiltrated by globalists. I don't know. Is there?
Well, to be fair, he has made some bad endorsements over the years, but nonetheless, I mean, that's a situation where if you are a state party official, your job is to support your guy at the top of the ticket. I mean, that's one thing for a private person or for an issue-based or group to say, hey, so and so is going to be bad on our issues. But as a party chair, when Trump says, I want Pete Hoekstra to be my state chair, I might disagree with that. But if you're Kristina Karamo and your job is to say, yes, Mr. President, okay.
That's right. That's right. And Lauren says Anne has not taken money that was given to help congressional districts to pay her own personal attorney fees. Yep. Someone else did with initials KK.
It's acts of evil. We're talking about adultery and everything else, and they claim to be Christian. And then what's going on in our parties, we have to remember, many people in this room I love dearly. Some of you I don't know. But we have allowed in our party our desire for friendship to go above righteousness. And we see people in our party engaging in evil, and we say nothing. That's my friend. Right. I like them.
Isn't that exactly what they're doing about Neil Frisky right now?
Yeah, yeah. And she wants people to turn against their friends, and is what they're saying. I know that person personally, and that's also a very common story. I mean, in my local party, we have a couple of disruptors who have been connected to Kristina. We've got some folks who have literally done nothing intentionally for us for the past year. Not one of them has ever contacted us and say, what's going on? What's your side of the story? Never once. And that is, unfortunately, what Kristina is leading people towards doing is to say, anyone who is not supporting me is some kind of heretic, some kind of fake Christian, some kind of servant of the devil. It's all a way to short circuit people's thinking about these things. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to, well, who's actually putting in work? Who's actually trying to elect Republicans, whether it's Trump or anybody else? And the pattern always is they're not involved in races, not at the state level, not at the local level, not at the federal level. They're not involved in any kind of issue advocacy. They're not really involved in believe me, I mean, the Rescue Michigan Coalition's website is the only website that keeps track of every single thing the state legislature does. And we go after politicians that break their word. We do candidate surveys. We report to people how politicians actually vote. And there, no, I mean, not that I'm bitter, but no one's coming up and saying, "Oh yeah, you should support these guys because they're actually exposing these people." No, they don't do any issue advocacy. They don't do any political advocacy. It's about one thing and only one thing: taking over the party. That is their singular obsession. They don't go to events. We had a Lincoln Day dinner. They don't go to fundraisers. They don't knock on doors. They don't go to campaign trainings because they're not going to do any campaigns except for themselves, maybe for the purpose of taking over the party. That's it. That is their one and only thing that they do.
Yeah. Initially, I was calling them disruptors, but I've come to calling them anti-Republicans because that's really a lot more accurate. And back to the recording here, Divergent says, I'm sorry, who is she to judge me in my relationship with Jesus? Absolutely. And, they call themselves Christians, and yet Christ clearly said, do not, you're not the judge, I am. And
Yeah.
So let's get back.
Yeah.
Nice people. I don't want to say too much. I enjoy them. And we know they're engaging in evil, and we do nothing. What does Romans 1 tell us? If we see people engaging in evil and we do nothing, we're complicit. And what they've done, they got a bunch of fake Christians to kind of organize their effort, because with all of us being such strong believers, they had to get fake Christians. So I'm going to tell you some stories very quickly to prove the point of what we're dealing with.
Okay, so and what you said earlier about, it's very clear that she is trying to draw a wedge between friends.
If she was writing this down, there'd be hyphens between fake Christians.
And yeah, I mean, you could definitely see Labadie's influence there, but
yeah.
that is the telltale sign of a cult, is when the cult becomes stronger, then the connection to the cult becomes stronger, and the cult leaders become stronger than the connection to friends and family. And that's clearly what she's trying to do right here, is to strengthen, saying we're the only real Christians. It doesn't matter if they're friends. You need to, you need to reject them. You need to confront them because they're evil. They're evil. Matt Wilk says they were very surprised when they found out that there wasn't a lot of money for them when Kristina was elected chair, right? They wanted more. All right, let's go on.
Why would this woman who claims Christ just lie like that? Number one, she clearly doesn't feel hell, because the Bible tells us the liars will be thrown in the lake of fire. And when I took this position of chair, I realized more than ever why lying. Because I used to kind of go, I know lying is wrong. Well, why does someone need to be thrown in the lake of fire for lying? That seems kind of intense. But after this position, not just me, but people like Phil, Lori, and many people in this room, I've watched their personal reputations get destroyed by these people who claim Christ. And that's caused so much harm in our party. So now our party has been neutered, because now there's so much distrust and conflict and inability to function because of these people, and they all engage in evil under the banner of Christ. It's completely unbelievable to me what I've watched happen in this party. There's a couple of the reason why that's important to say, because these people come as wolves in sheep's clothing. Yes. Now, I am not going to pretend like I'm a theologian, but the thing about it is, when I hear about using our Lord's name in vain, this is what I think about. I think about people who engage in acts of evil and then use our Savior's shed blood to cover their evil, for you to trust them while they engage in evil.
Go ahead.
This angers me so much. This is not, if you're not a Christian, this is not Christianity. What she is representing there, this is not Christianity. This is the opposite of this. This is antichrist stuff. This is absolutely not in any way or shape or form biblical Christianity that Kristina Karamo is espousing here. This is it is straight up wicked, and it angers me so much that I have trouble putting it to words.
It should be, and it angers me as a Republican too, because this is why people were running away from the GOP, because this I mean, as hideous as this is, it didn't start after she was removed from power. This was what she was saying of all of her enemies, starting almost right from the beginning. And you even go back further too, because one of the things that her supporters have in their narrative is that the state party had fallen apart until Kristina Karamo came in, which is, absurd to think that she built anything back again. But remember what happened before Karamo came in as state chair. Before Kristina Karamo, we had Ron Weiser as our state chair, who, in my humble opinion, and she calls him a globalist, of course, Ron Weiser has constantly been maligned as state chair, when all he's ever done for the party is given it tons of money and asked nothing in exchange. And in the very beginning, before Weiser, was the chair before him was Laura Cox, who left the party with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. There was financial liabilities. She was going to resign, and then she came out of He entered the race again just to attack Ron Weiser and accuse him of buying somebody off. And when Ron Weiser became chair, what did he do? He appointed Michonne Maddock, who was like the original Trump supporter, who organized the biggest Trump group in the state, to be co-chair. He gave millions of dollars to Unlock Michigan to help, end Governor Whitmer's lockdowns, things the state chair has never done before. And when it really came apart was at the convention we had after the primary in August of 2022, which was not December, back in August,
right,
when Tudor Dixon had won the election. The first thing that the grassroots wanted to do at that point, this is, remember, the precinct delegates are elected in August in the primary elections of these even-numbered years. So the current crop of delegates who elected on the third ballot Kristina were now at their first state convention, if it was their first time getting elected. The first thing they did was they tried to challenge who Tudor Dixon chose to be her running mate. Even though she picked an outstanding conservative, Shane Hernandez. No, let's pick Ralph Rebant, this pastor. When they had the convention, the first thing to do with the call to order was challenge the waiving of the reading of the call to convention. And, and going back to what you were saying earlier about how you don't like the word disruptor. Actually, disruptor, I used to say destroyer was the better term, but no, disruptor is good because disruption is what they do.
Yeah.
So for no purpose at all, the first thing they want to do is disrupt the convention. So the first thing was challenge the waiving of the reading of the call to convention. And immediately we have an angry mob. Now that, and the people are, and you could tell there was now challenges to the Macomb County delegation, to the Hillsdale delegation. That crowd was ready to boo Ron Weiser off the stage. And you knew right then and there, his enthusiasm as state chair was just gone. And that was coming off of a very contentious primary where a lot of the candidates got disqualified from the ballot and things already weren't going very well. The Democrats had all this out of state money pouring in for Prop 2 and Prop 3. It was a huge, huge blue threat we had that year in the purported red wave. And these same people were doing everything they could to cause as much chaos at that time. And as it turned out, we fell short by just a little bit, which is all it took in the House and the Senate. And we lost everything that year when we didn't have to. So it wasn't just that the party was at its lowest point and then the Karamo people came in to fix things. They had their hand in knocking everything down before the 2022 election happened, not just afterwards.
That is so good, Adam. And yeah, I know that convention was definitely a turning point in a lot of things, as I've been told, but I don't think I've heard it anywhere as eloquently as you just put it. The Divergent says her words and actions show she's truly a bad person, and I think that she's been made into that. I don't think that that's who she was before she met Mike Labadie. I think that she too is a victim of a psychological operation, but she's responsible for who she's become and what she's doing now. Lauren says, absolutely, this is bitter, angry, vindictive conduct.
We have a local disruptor who's apparently going to get angry at me because I called him out on my Rescue Michigan webpage. And it's like, dude, you're running for state rep. Congratulations, you're a public figure. You can't take the heat. Get out of the kitchen. Besides, we know why they're running, because why would a Republican run in a safe Democrat seat except because they want to be on our executive committee because it's a statutory member. So that's all about. So that's the way that goes.
So, and what are they doing? You said that there's a resolution or something that they're planning on.
Oh, well, we'll see. We've gotten notified. We send out our email because we have our meeting coming up in a few days. And every meeting we've had this year, and even going back into last year, they've been extremely disruptive. So back in March, they brought their minions in, screamed, yelled, shouted. They ran a resolution to censure me and the chairman of the county party. Which, whatever, I can take it, but it wasn't in order. It wasn't on the agenda. They didn't request to be on the agenda. It was let's throw this in the middle of the meeting kind of thing, So they got the people screaming and yelling. We literally could not run a meeting. So that was the end of that meeting. That was in March. So cut to this meeting, and we got this notification from one of their people. Now this guy, he was our finance chair. Never did one thing for the county party. We asked him after a few months, are you going to do anything? Finally, at one point, he says, I've had family issues. Okay, we get it. Family always comes first. No problem. at some point when he says, I've gotten a report, he has a little too much of a grin on his face. And we know something's up. And finally, like, okay, you can't be finance chair. So we brought our events chair to be the finance chair. Immediately starts raising tons of money. Hugely successful guy, realizing we had someone in that role. They weren't doing anything. So now this guy comes in. He's going to be at our meeting. He's on the executive committee. Hasn't done anything for us in 2 years. Oh, I'm going to run a motion to say that Adam is criticizing Jason Rogers because he is attacking Jason for supporting James Chapman, for not serving James Chapman and his support. So those who don't know who James Chapman is, James Chapman is the famous ball kicker who has a felony conviction for aggravated assault. He has a pending charge for the ball kicking incident. He is now running for state representative. He was at our district caucus at the last state convention.
This is not a soccer ball that he kicked.
No, it was a man's testicles.
Yeah.
So we do our candidate survey. And at the state convention a few months ago, Chapman is now he's trying to get elevated to be a delegate because the Wayne County delegation, when they had their county convention, said, we passed a resolution that you're not current on your dues, and besides, you have a pending criminal charge, so you're not eligible. So at the district caucus, the disruptors get up and motion to elevate Chapman to be a delegate. And then some people move for him to be a national delegate. He gets 8 votes for national delegate to go to the national convention. And, we saw the voice vote because when they're elevating him, Jason and Miriam, another candidate, get up and cheer for him. I'm like, no, I'm not spending my donors' money to survey candidates. I'm not going to send them a stamp in the mail so they can put down, oh yeah, I'm a total liberty supporter on all these great issues. No, I'm not surveying you. Nothing to do with our county party. So he sends us an email. Oh yeah, we're gonna confront you on our executive committee meeting, and this is inappropriate what you do in your private time. No, sorry. Hey, let's have this out. Let's because he also takes umbrage at the term that I've been calling them disruptors. All you do is disrupt things. You disrupted our March meeting to the point we couldn't hold our business. You don't volunteer for anything. You don't knock on doors. The only candidates you recruit are ones to overthrow the party with. That's the only thing that they do. So, okay. We'll have this out at our meeting. We'll see how that goes. Let me guess what they're going to do. They're going to disrupt things, I expect. Time will tell. We shall see. But in the meantime, I don't just quarrel with them. I also recruit candidates. I also do legislative work. I have this stream where we talk about what the politicians are doing and how they're voting. We actually do the work of politics. We do 4th of July parades. We do fundraising dinners, things that involve putting in work and time and energy and money for changing political outcomes in a way that's beneficial to Republicans and harmful to Democrats, which is a foreign language to the disruptors. They're there for only one purpose, and that's to sow fear, hatred, animosity. And that's what they are. They're disruptors. They're destroyers. That is what their work is. And you can know them by their fruits. That's and right. Case in point, Kristina Karamo.
Yep. And Mike Labadie. We are in a very dangerous time, and it's easy to laugh at it at times because it's so, what they do is just so ridiculous.
Oh, it's frustrating. They've gotten I think at least 2, if not 3 people to resign from our executive committee.
Right.
Just because they don't want to deal with the drama. And the reality is, it's bad enough we have 2 fundamental enemies, right? We've got the Democrats, the entire political left. You also have the corrupt Republican establishment, which is a thing, by the way. It's in some places. Then on top of that, there's also this other force within the GOP, which is not the establishment. It's something, I think, even worse. Right. And at first for a long time, I thought it's well-meaning patriots in search of a silver bullet, in search of an easy answer. And because there's always been this thing. If we just do yada, if we just elect Donald Trump, well, he was president for 4 years. Guess what? Even then, he is at best 1/3 of the federal government. There's still everything else in the world. We can have a constitutional convention and we'll pass a balanced budget amendment. We'll fix all the mistakes. There's always these. We'll have a petition. We'll have a petition to repeal Prop 2. We'll have a lawsuit to repeal Prop 2. There's always anything but actually knocking on doors, winning an election, changing public opinion, shoe leather work. And that's seductive. But what I think you discovered with that report on Labadie, which was what launched your journalism, is that it's not just a bunch of well-meaning patriots who are getting seduced by what seems like something easy. It is organized, it is controlled, it is manipulated, it is scientifically engineered, and it's operating in multiple states, and especially in Michigan, which, when you think about it now, of course,
right.
they engineered a plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. You think the globalists, the deep state, aren't going to be involved in the Republican politics of a swing state? They'd be crazy not to be. Of course they are.
That's right. Yeah.
Who else would they be?
Right. Aaron's Rod makes an interesting point. They aren't Republicans; they're Koch libertarians, and I think that's there is an aspect of that, and actually, I'm working on a story that shows potential. The story that I'm about to publish about the electors shows a potential connection between Flynn and Koch, but there is, but I think that's more of an occasional partnership rather than an identity. I think that their identity really is in this Flynn Christian nationalism.
Yeah, that's something completely different, and they are not friends with that either. The Koch brothers, or we call it the Kochtopus, was involved almost from the very beginning with the Libertarian Party, and sometimes Justin Raimondo would call them the Cosmotarians. And they were the kind of libertarians who are really big on low taxes, but then also homosexual marriage. They are not compatible with the hardcore fundamentalist radicals at all. It comes from a different place. There's a part of that that's somewhat establishment. Like, there's a lot of overlap between the Koch network and the old right money, people like the Heritage Foundation, groups like that. But and to some degree that would be what the old establishment, which is generally friendly with the military industrial complex and things like that. But no, this is something completely different altogether. It doesn't come from that. It comes from somewhere else. And I think if it comes from any institution you recognize, it'd be the Democrat Party,
or the deep state that they're affiliated with, and that's where everything that I'm seeing, it continues to bolster my thesis that Flynn is, there might be somebody above Flynn, but Flynn is the figurehead. Flynn is the leader of this, and it started, I believe, in 2012 when he joined Obama's DIA, and he became the DIA director for Obama.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, in the private chat, I sent you a link to that clip I was talking about involving Flynn. And there's another one, I don't have it handy. It was something Scott Ritter was talking about on his show the other day. I'll get the clip for you for next time. But it was about 43 minutes in, and a caller asked him about Mike Flynn. And he said, and Scott Ritter made the same exact point. He said, Flynn, when he was a general, had a command structure under him. So when he was going out, if he was going to do anything crazy, you have people that, that kind of reel you back in. Whereas when Flynn became Trump's national security advisor, there was nobody there. And he was immediately instantiating policy. And the example Ritter gave was when Flynn said, we put Iran on notice. And he was like, well, wait a minute. That's not how that works in the military. Before you put Iran on notice, you have to have a coordination of policy meeting where you and the White House and all these other agencies get together and, work through the policy before you have a coordinated policy that you roll out. Not just, I called Iran and gave him what for. It doesn't work that way. So,
right.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Well, that's actually, we'll add that video is excellent. So let me pull that up here.
Yeah, go ahead. I got plenty of time. We can talk as long as you like.
Cool.
Talk to him about Putin.
Is that coming through?
I hear it, yes.
I just want to change my...
She'd heard him say some quite positive things about his potential relationship with Putin during the campaign.
So this is Theresa May, who was the Prime Minister of England at that time. And these are all British people, obviously by their accent, but they're talking about the very first meeting between Theresa May and her staff and President Trump and his staff shortly after he was inaugurated. I think this was probably like February of 17. And so this is right before, because Flynn was only the national security advisor for like 35 days, I think. So it was right before he was fired or stepped down.
To tell him what she thought he was like.
She asked him, have you spoken with Putin? And the president said he had not. But at that point, the chief of staff spoke up and said, Mr. President, actually, President Putin has called you, but we're busy scheduling a return call.
Trump at this point looks not orange but red. He flipped, furious. He said, you're telling me that Vladimir Putin called the White House and you're only telling me now during this lunch?
The president dropped his shoulders for a moment, looked at the prime minister and said, I don't believe this. Vladimir Putin is the only man in the world who can destroy the United States, and I didn't take his call.
Honestly, you could feel the tumbleweeds just completely take over the entire lunch table, and my toes were curling.
He seemed to realize that he was playing out in front of the British delegation and the prime minister, an unseemly moment in the early days of his administration. So he changed the subject.
He asked Theresa what her position on climate change is, and Theresa was halfway through something about how she's a big, ardent fan of conservation, and then suddenly he stops again, and he says to the National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, "You're telling me that Vladimir Putin called the White House, and you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me."
Yep.
And the thing is that's not all. I mean, he did the exact same thing with the call with Kislyak just a couple months before that. And, in a lot of ways that was even worse because it was a clear setup. I mean, it was just a very clear setup. He did the same thing in arranging for the meetings with Don Jr. and what was Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner. So he arranged for those meetings as well, and he and from what I understand, he made it out to be, it's no big deal. You don't need to bring counsel with you. The FBI called him Crossfire Razor for real good reason, because he was the center of the entire Crossfire Hurricane thing. If it weren't for Trump, or if it weren't for Flynn, there would have been no investigation. And that's a pattern, and we see that even there's so many points of evidence, but ultimately he is the figurehead behind this movement, this anti-Republican disruptor movement that we've been talking about. And even in that email, that first email that you shared that Labadie sent you 4 years ago, he was talking about Flynn in that email. So
funny.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Adam, for coming on. You've got because you've been covering what's going on in Michigan, what's been happening in Michigan within the Republican Party for so long. You've just got a tremendous wealth of knowledge and experience and wisdom, and I appreciate everything you've shared. How can, if somebody has is from perhaps another state, because I think everybody here in Michigan knows you better than they know me, but how can people get a hold of you or find you?
RescueMichigan.com is our website. That's all there is to it, really. You can find Operation Watchdog there, which is on the homepage, where we have the descriptions of all the bills, all the votes. We track everything going on in Lansing. There's also candidate surveys that just came out. I think those are linked on the homepage as well. And we're on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, so you can look us up on all those channels. They're all linked on the RescueMichigan.com website, and that's the best way to stay in touch. So thanks for having me, Scott. Really appreciate being on the show. I'm glad I got to be on before you became 10 times more famous than me, because that's coming. It's coming soon, man. This is you've hit on the biggest story of the year, if not the decade.
Yeah,
so,
I think so. And I've only told 5% of it, so there's a lot more to come.
Awesome, can't wait.
So great, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us, and yeah, we will until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cool.